This is episode 6 of the MTGDeckTechs podcast. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the MTGDeckTechs podcast. I'm James, one of your MTGDeckTechs, joined today by Jason. How you doing, Jason?
Hey everybody, this is Jason. I'm good. How are you?
All right. Well, I hope everyone has been having a wonderful week. Well, really 2 weeks since our last episode. Sorry about that, but there really wasn't a whole lot going in the Magic world. Before we get to our topics, just want to remind you that if you have any gaming needs for dice bags, any type of play mats, mouse pads, whatever you're in the market for, make sure that you check out inkedgaming.com. And at checkout, you can put in the code TECHS10, TECHS10, for 10% off of all of your goods at checkout. And then we get a little bit too, as it's an affiliate code for us. So it's a win-win. Also, if you like our show or our online content on YouTube or our Twitch streams, please make sure that you try to support us if you can and you're willing, or if you think that you're getting something out of the content we produce. And check us out on our Patreon page at patreon.com/themtgdecktechs. And then if you'd like to support the podcast directly, on your podcast source, there should be a link to our Anchor site where you can also support our show directly. But honestly, if you would just share and provide some sort of rating in the podcasting service of your choice, it would be a huge help for our show. Just getting the word out there is definitely the biggest challenge for content creators like ourselves. So, without further ado, the topics for this week. So, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the Magic world the past couple of weeks, not just the awesome standard format of Guilds of Ravnica, but we are going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about some of the good, bad, and the ugly that's been going on in the MTG community. First off, we have a topic that relates to kind of alleged sexual harassment in the community, which is a touchy subject, and we're going to kind of touch on that and just kind of, you can hear our thoughts on how prevalent it is in the community and things that we should probably do to stop it. And then we have a follow-up announcement on the school-age kids, and their pre-release that was shut down. We mentioned that in a few episodes ago, and there's a follow-up, and they actually did get to have a pre-release, so we'll be talking about that. And then we have the finale of the MTG bracket coming to a close this upcoming week, Wednesday. So if you've been tracking that at all, this is a pretty exciting event for them, and we'll be discussing what those cards are and where you can check out and see what the best card in Magic history is. And then we have some events that went on this weekend, such as GP's Lille in New Jersey, and then we had SCG Modern taking place in Charlotte. So, that was a lot. Which one do you want to start on, Jason?
If you want, we can touch on the harassment thing. That's a good place to start, I guess.
Yeah, I guess, if it's bad news and good news, let's start with the bad news first. So, what do you know about the topic that we're about to discuss, Jason?
All right, so Todd Stevens, he's a very prominent member in the Star City Games circle on their circuit. He's also a writer for Star City Games. Well, not anymore. It was brought to Star City Games' attention that there was alleged sexual harassment involving Todd Stevens at a party where he got drunk and he made sexual advances to a couple of women at the events. It was brought to the SCG's attention, and they handled it. I don't know how quickly it was or whatever, but he was fired from writing for Star City Games. He was banned from Star City Games circuits for 3 years. He was also removed from the Team BCW that was sponsoring him, and he stepped away from Ponder Podcast. So what do you make of all this, James?
Well, it's an interesting and sensitive topic. So I first heard about it by the Hipsters of the Coast article that went up, and it was a very early take on it. It was basically what it seemed like was SCG had some sort of leak, or someone had found out a little bit of information ahead of time, put it out on Hipsters of the Coast with the promise for follow-up information. There really hasn't been any follow-up. but it seemed pretty drastic, and they were pretty excited to get the name out there and kind of drag him through the mud. So it's kind of, like I said, it's sensitive because it's all allegation right now, and there's a lot of comments going back and forth. Well, not even really back and forth, but just at Star City Games on Twitter. Star City Games isn't really responding to anything regarding whether or not there's an investigation, kind of the impact of all these services really cutting Todd Stevens off from being able to contribute, and whether or not it's fair without the conclusion of an investigation. But I didn't really want to talk too much about him personally. I don't really know him. Like I said, the information isn't too strong out there, but I think that this situation does bring the subject of sexual harassment and kind of the poor sportsmanship that we can sometimes see in the community. So with a high-profile player such as Todd Stevens being called out for something like this, how prevalent do you think this is in the Magic community? And, you know, among the top-level tier pro players, do you think it's more prevalent, or do you think it's more prevalent, you know, on the more F&M scene, or do you think it matters and it's just kind of equally spread throughout the whole community, or is this just an isolated incident?
This is by no means an isolated incident. Real quick, I want to touch on Todd Stevens. I'm not 100% sure that, like, I really don't see Star City Games as the type of company that's going to, like, do what they did on strictly allegations. I believe this is a long-running thing that he has done. And also, Hipsters of the Coast has been updating their information on their article as they've gotten information. So that article was being updated like every couple of days. As soon as they got the information, they updated it. So they have been keeping on top of the whole situation for what they can get. But as far as how prevalent it is, I think it's very prevalent. I think it's wider than you can see on the surface. Basically, this type of thing isn't talked about a whole lot, just basically because of the subject matter. People don't necessarily, they won't come forward out of fear or out of whatever, and it's a hard subject to talk about, and it's something that's like very close to me, and it's definitely more prevalent than you see on the surface. Things need to be done about it, and I think that this is a good start. People are all like, "Oh, Todd Stevens was a good guy and everything. He did." I don't believe he would do that. Well, like, these people are also men that are saying that, and they're not women. Like, they can't possibly see that same side of somebody. You know, it's I don't know. Like, there needs to be something done about it, and I think this is a start. And I think that people that are experiencing this definitely need to come forward and try to bring attention to it, and, like, cut the stigma from it, and, like, let's try to do something about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right. And thanks for the correction on Hipsters of the Coast. Yeah, so did check up on it. They have been updating, like you said, and it's just it's a terrible thing. And honestly, I think you're also right that it is pretty prevalent. I haven't really seen it myself, but I think it's a large contributor to why it's one of the reasons why there is so many less females than males that game overall, especially, in Magic. I mean, you go to any GP and it's pretty male dominated, and that's something that comes up every now and then. But you're right, it is a sensitive topic, and I think overall that if people that were offended or slighted in this manner came forward, it would overall help the community as a whole. It would help wean out the people that are trying to damage the community, essentially, by putting themselves first over, the idea of us just playing a game together and enjoying ourselves. So a high-profile person like this, receiving some sort of punishment and not being brushed under the rug or anything, and it being dealt with professionally, swiftly, quickly, I think is definitely, like you said, a good start. And, the more that we can filter this kind of thing out, and hopefully this made the example to others to check their own behavior, so that, hopefully with this kind of press on a situation like this, hopefully overall it goes down, it becomes less prevalent, and then we can, enjoy the game altogether, and it won't be an issue anymore. So I didn't want to dive too deep on this issue. It is very sensitive, but I thought that with this article coming out and this event taking place, that it was worthy to stop by and bring it up and, overall state, its impact on the community. I don't know if you have anything else you want to hit on this topic, but overall, my opinion is I'm glad that it got taken care of so swiftly, and hopefully it does make an impact on the community.
Yeah, basically, I just want to kind of end on, like you were saying, how this is one of the reasons why that there aren't a whole lot of females in Magic, and yeah, it really is. I think, just the way that I wish that women would feel more welcomed in the community. I know my local game store, like, we have women that come and play there, and everybody's a part of the family, and that's really honestly how it should be. Like, I don't see Magic players as like male or female. Like, I understand. I'm not saying like everybody's got their quirks and everything, and like, but we're all cool and we're all here playing a game, and that's what I want to see. Like, I want to see people all playing a game and having fun and enjoying what they're doing. And I think that it's a great place for women to be, and I would like to see more come in and not feel like they're being treated poorly. So that's my opinion on it. But other than that, like, that's all I have on the subject.
Pretty much, we just wanted to drop that subject down. If you guys have any opinions, make sure you hit us up on our social networking pages or podcast email, which we'll provide at the end. Okay, so that was the bad news. Let's get into some of the good news. So a couple episodes ago, we talked about the library incident. It was during the pre-release for Guilds of Ravnica, and it was kind of a bad press type of story. It was a story of this tournament organizer who, through a store, received kind of like a sponsorship through the store to run events at a local library. And what he was going to do is he was going to do this pre-release for Guilds of Ravnica at the library, but there was we'll call it an audit. It was like a Wizards Play Network audit of the store, and it turned out that they didn't meet the minimum requirements and that they couldn't be doing it in the library. And overall, the bottom line was that Wizards revoked the store from getting the pre-release packs and from that pre-release happening for all the kids at the local library. Well, apparently there was a huge change of heart. And have you heard much about this, Jason?
I didn't hear a whole lot about it. I didn't get a chance to read the article, but I do know that they got their pre-release and it was free. So if you could fill me in more on it, like, I think it's great that they actually got it in, though.
Yeah, it was posted on it was posted on CoolStuffInc.com. It was by Bruce Richard, and this was posted back on October 22nd. And it was basically just an article saying how, when that first article was published about Wizards revoking the pre-release opportunity for all the kids and him as the tournament organizer, the huge community support that came forward. So, we mentioned the article. There were several other content creators that publicized this news, and a lot of the Magic community stepped up and, they hit him up, found out if they could send them booster boxes, if they could send him any other product for the kids to play with. And then other local stores were trying to find out if they could help. And the bottom line is there was a huge stand up from the community to try to make sure that this tournament organizer and these kids got what they needed. And it didn't even just end with the community. Wizards also reached out to Mr. Richard and sent him pre-release packs. And the kids ended up getting to have a free pre-release event, and it was less than the original 36 that he was hoping for, but it was 26 kids that got to enjoy a free pre-release at their local library. And it was really cool. And if you go onto CoolStuffInc.com, you can see the article, and he posts a ton of pictures of the kids really enjoying themselves. And it definitely looks like this Mr. Richard has created an awesome community outlet at this library and an awesome group of kids that seem to really enjoy the game. You should definitely check it out. It's on CoolStuffInc.com. But overall, I'd really like to hit this topic after the last topic because it just shows how awesome the Magic community really can be. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Jason. I know that you didn't hadn't read the article beforehand, but you were vaguely aware that this occurred.
Yeah, so I shared my opinion on the whole thing in a previous podcast. I think it's great that they got what they came for, and Wizards needs to act up on things that we see as like a slight or a negative on their part, like they did here. This is I won't say it's like a complete mistake. I think it was terrible what happened, but they have their procedures and everything. I think they should have made an exception for this instance and let them have their Wizards Play Network status, but they didn't. And we voiced our opinions, and they listened, and they gave them what they came for. So I think that's a great thing, and it's a good look for Wizards. It's just overall a good end to a kind of bad story. So I'm glad that they got what they wanted.
Yeah, me too. I wish that this was the immediate response, though. I feel like we talked about in the last podcast, this was actually a answer. One of the things that we kind of proposed, like if they did this audit and a human being didn't just look at a checklist and rather looked at the situation as a whole, that they probably would have come up with this conclusion before they just completely cut it. Yes, the store was out of compliance, got it. You got to do what you got to do. You are a business, but look at this Magic Club that has been formed in this community, and maybe we either let them do the pre-release or give them some product and let them play, and then enforce, of course, the rules on the store that was trying to kind of operate through a loophole. But like I said, yeah, it was really great that Wizards came through and did this, and hopefully they do look into another option that we were talking about with some sort of WPN status for clubs, because that's essentially what this is. It's a Magic Club that operates out of a public library. So, yeah, this is a feel-good story. Do you have anything else on it?
Yeah, I wish that Wizards would have came up with that sooner as well. Like whenever they got the initial response from Bruce Richard about it, if they would have come to this conclusion, yes, it would have stopped a lot of the negativity that came on their part. And this is the conclusion that they came to anyway. So like, it would have been a lot less like voiced. And it would have just been like clean and over with and done if they would have just came up with this thing before everybody heard of it. And no, I also really like that idea for a WPN status for clubs, for libraries and schools and stuff. It'd be a great way to get people into playing the game. And Magic's always been a cool thing to play when you're a kid and stuff. It'll keep you away from some of the crappier things that you can be doing when you're a teenager as well. So I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that'd be an interesting conversation to have with Wizards. Because I mean, obviously having like a WPN just for like a group of people that call themselves a club could have issues. But if they did exactly what these people were doing and being sponsored through a store, and they just play at an offsite location, I think it could be a really cool thing. Not even just for schools, but just groups of friends. But I could see the impact on the LGS. I don't know. I'd have to sit down and actually think about it. But yeah, I'm super glad this happened, and I think that a club WPN status would be the way of the future. But that pretty much sums up this topic. And our next topic is another bit of good news. So the MTG bracket, the Magic bracket. The Magic bracket has been going on for the past 2 years. Okay, so if you go on to mtgbracket.tumblr.com, you'll find the blog that is associated with the Magic bracket, which essentially what they do is back in 2016, late in 2016, they decided that they were going to sit down and create an entire bracket from every card that had been made in Magic up to that point. And then the community would vote. And they would vote on each card head-to-head. Every single one would be paired. And then they'd move up the bracket and be paired with the winners of the other ones all the way up until now. And so right now we have the very last 2 cards of all of Magic the Gathering that was printed in 2016. And the winner will be announced on Wednesday, the 31st of October. And the 2 cards are Lightning Bolt and Bird of Paradise. So what are your thoughts on that, Jason?
So Lightning Bolt and Birds of Paradise are two of some of the two of the most iconic cards in Magic's history. I think it's great that these two are paired against each other, especially with the whole expression "Bolt the Bird." So like you finally get a good look to see like those two cards, like which is the more popular of the two. Um, I don't know. Like it's not like super relevant to like the game itself, but it's a really sweet thing to see. And after 2 years, I'm glad to see that we've come down to two very iconic cards in Magic's history in Lightning Bolt and Birds of Paradise. I'm hoping that Birds of Paradise wins because Birds of Paradise is my favorite card of all time. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, okay, so I've got a few thoughts on this bracket thing. First of all, the level of commitment that went into these guys for just doing this. I mean, it started late in 2016, all the way until now. What they state on their Tumblr page is that this is after 589 different surveys with a total of more than 16 million votes that occurred to get to this point. So it just blows my mind that they kept this up for so long, and they're finally at the final. I'm curious what they're going to do now, like now that they're done. I don't know. They're going to have all this free time on their hands. I personally think Lightning Bolt should win. You should bolt the bird. And I think Lightning Bolt is so iconic and so prevalent in all formats that it has to win. It's gonna be the winner. But if you were to pick a couple other cards, for example, what cards are you surprised didn't make it to the final two, or are these two just the perfect pairing that you would have expected if you were to guess at the beginning of this? What card do you think maybe got overlooked or you expected to be in the finals?
I don't know. Like I kind of thought that Black Lotus might, if that might have gone a little farther. I'm just trying to think of like all the really super like popular cards in Magic. You got your older cards. I think Thoughtseize might have been a little bit better, or maybe Path to Exile, because it's, I don't know. I don't know what the criteria was for starting. Was it just stuff that was printed by 2016?
Yeah, so the original bracket was just all cards that had been printed at the time that they decided to start. So all these new sets, obviously the newer cards since 2016 aren't incorporated in the bracket, so none of those are in it. But there was really no criteria for voting either. It was just community voting. It was just this card, which one? And so it is kind of interesting that this is how the community ended up voting, because you're right, like Black Lotus, like that's a card, like if we were just going off power level, like that would be an extremely powerful card to vote up. And I mean, there's just so many other cards. You got just very iconic cards too, like Fireball or Sarah Angel. Just random other cards that really just scream Magic the Gathering when you look at them. But I think Lightning Bolt and Birds of Paradise is a pretty cool pairing. And like you said, with the whole saying "Bolt the Bird," you couldn't have orchestrated a better final two. But yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's great that it came down to those two. Like, it's very ironic because I mean, Birth of Bolt is a very well-known saying, and it's basically applicable in any format at this point since Standard has one mana dorks again. So I think that's really nifty.
Yeah, I think because of that saying though, and because of their past, I think that Lightning Bolt is just gonna win.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it wins, but like I really want to see Birds of Paradise wins. If I'm voting with my heart, I'm voting for Birds of Paradise. If I'm voting with my brain, I'm saying Lightning Bolt.
Fair enough. All right, well, I guess we'll just have to find out. The answers will be released on Halloween, October 31st. So we'll find out what the winner is then. Also, just to be aware of, is this bracket supports a fundraiser for the Samaritans. So if you go to the mtgbracket.tumblr.com page, they have a link to the fundraiser at justgiving.com, and from there you can help support the Samaritans, which I guess is a group that is basically just there to help you cope with whatever it is that you are going through, whatever stressors of life. So if you're interested in supporting that, that's part of what MTG Bracket is all about, is helping this particular fundraiser. So, all right, well, that kind of just brings us to our last topic, which is just a quick touch on some of the events that have been taking place and our thoughts on the current state of Magic, especially with Guilds of Ravnica Standard. So we had coverage this weekend. There were 2 GPs and there was an SCG event that took place this weekend. For GPs, we have the GP Lille in France, which had Twitch coverage, which was standard, and then we had a standard GP in New Jersey, and then SCG was having a modern event in Charlotte. So did you have a chance to catch any of these?
I caught a little bit of the GP Charlotte because I enjoy watching modern action. I didn't get a chance to watch Lille because, I don't know, I had other stuff that I was trying to get done too. So I checked in on Star City Games because I love their coverage and I really like modern and everything. And yeah, so like the modern format is in an interesting spot right now, and that's kind of why I wanted to check up on it. It's pretty cool that they did cover Lille though. So, with the GP schedules the way that they're going to be, they kind of slighted the European market a little bit, so getting actual coverage on the European scene was a good touch.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't watch too much of the SCG, but I have heard. So at time of recording, this is Saturday night, so we don't know who won any of these events, which you will know by the time you're listening to it. But I watched primarily the standard GP in Lille because Guilds of Ravnica Standard has just been so interesting to me. I think it's so wide for a standard format right now with all the deck choices. But I kind of want to get your take. So on modern. So you were watching the modern a little bit in Charlotte from SCG. How has Guilds of Ravnica really stirred up the modern scene? I've heard a little bit about the effect of Creeping Chill on the Dredge deck and Dredge taking a huge step up in the metagame. What are your thoughts on the state of modern right now?
The state of modern right now, Dredge is at the forefront right now. Creeping Chill has come in and kind of warped the format a little bit. I don't know how badly it warped it, and we won't know for a couple weeks. But Dredge put out a really good showing last week. I know that deck put our very own Sean, who's at GP New Jersey this weekend. It gave him a 13th place finish at the SCG event last weekend. So congrats to Sean on that finish. But Dredge was a very, very big threat there, and it put a lot of people in the top standings. So Creeping Chill has by far been the most the most influential card from Guilds of Ravnica to hit modern. As far as anything else goes, there's not a whole lot going on that's like pushed anything further other than Creeping Chill.
Yeah, from what I understand, Creeping Chill. So I haven't actually played against Dredge or with Dredge since Guilds of Ravnica has come out, but I can only imagine how powerful Creeping Chill is in that deck. I mean, it essentially gives you a 12 life right off the top. I mean, you don't have to worry about winning during combat anymore. Like, you can actually just non-combat damage your opponent into the ground. So I think that's a really interesting tool for the Dredge deck. That's just going to make it super powerful right now, and it's going to end up warping the metagame a little bit with all the modern decks having to focus on additional sideboard slots to dealing with Dredge and always having to think about it.
As a Dredge player, I can speak on it a little bit. Basically, you're going to see these decks just like coming in with a lot more sideboard hate because Creeping Chill has to hit the graveyard for its effect to work, and that's basically for everything. So like a well-timed Rest in Peace is going to do some work, Grafdigger's Cage, stuff like that. It's going to still work, but yeah, definitely having Creeping Chill in the deck, it's definitely going to cut down on how much you have to damage them through combat and stuff, and have it. I think they went up to 3 Conflagrates for the most part too in the main deck, and they didn't really have to give up a whole lot as far as their actual engine to fit Creeping Chill in. I think they cut Golgari, Thugs, and some lands basically. So Yeah, it's definitely warping the format, and if things get bad enough, they're going to ban a card from Dredge, and that would be a very sad day for me. I've heard a lot of rumblings about Faithless Looting getting the axe if it comes to it.
I really hope that doesn't happen. I don't think it needs to happen, honestly. It's a super good card and it's very, very powerful in Dredge from what I've heard and just reading the card you think Dredge. And I don't know. Modern's just too much fun to keep adding bans and stuff to it. So we'll see what happens with that in the next few weeks. Right, so moving to standards. So you said you didn't watch too much of GP Lille, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Yeah, I watched a bit of it. What I really liked about it was just the wide range of decks. So we're kind of at that point where a lot of the control decks are coming out. So we've been seeing a lot of different types of 3-color control. We've been seeing a lot of black blue, surveil decks. A lot of Golgari mid range, of course. And if you go on to, and of course, by the time you're reading this or listening to this, you're going to know who won. You're going to know what the top 8 deck lists are. But right now, it's really interesting to go and look on the articles on the WotC Mothership page, and you can look at the decks that won the trials before the GPs. And again, there's just such a wide range. You've got white weenie decks. You've got, of course, you got the mono blue tempo deck was performing well this weekend. You have all these different decks, and it's just really fun to watch, and it's really fun to kind of game because, I mean, there's so much to choose from. What I'm curious about, though, is what are your thoughts on how this metagame plays out versus how the Pro Tour is going to be? Do you think pros are holding out on secrets, or if they brought their best of the best to this GP with the hopes of just practicing for the Pro Tour? Do you think the Pro Tour coming up has any effect on what we're seeing in the field right now?
Okay, so I've been in circles. I've been in a coaching group, and I've been in circles like with pro players, and there are secrets being withheld that they're not going to play at certain events. That is definitely the case, and I think the Pro Tour is going to be more focused on decks. It's not going to be as wide, at least what we see. It's just not going to be as wide as these events have been. So I think that we will see a clear best deck by the Pro Tour and clear a tier like your tier 1 decks, and then they'll be separated from everything else in the format. My opinion is Golgari is going to be your tier 1, followed by a Jeskai control deck. Also, there is a red-white aggro deck running around right now. It's basically mono white, splashing red for heroic reinforcements. That's the card. Splashing red for that card, and that card is bonkers. But I think that those are going to be your mid game, your mid range deck, your aggro deck, and your control deck archetypes at the Pro Tour. We'll see as time goes on and people keep figuring this format out. It's really hard to actually nail it down with how diverse the metagame has been.
I think you're right. I'm actually going to hazard to guess that we're going to see a ton of mono red at the Pro Tour. I think you're right with the Golgari mid range as well. I don't know if the control, of course, we'll see by the time you're listening to this, you'll see the top 8 deck list, but even though there are a lot of control decks, I don't think that they are going to be as prevalent at the Pro Tour. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, if you look at the trial deck list, there's dinosaur lists that are making it. I saw like this mono green dinosaur list that had like a splash of red just for like experimental frenzy. There's some crazy stuff going on, and I'm really curious to see if there's what the hidden secrets are that the pros really break out for the Pro Tour.
But going back on the standard metagame real quick, there are just so many things that you can be playing at an FNM level, at a GP level, that this quite possibly is my favorite format ever. I'm going to say that cautiously though, because I want to wait for Allegiance to see what the other guilds are going to bring to Magic and the other shock lands. But overall, you can play just about anything. You can play Golgari, which is a good deck right now, of course. You can play Boros. You can play Celestia tokens. You can play Dimir control shells. You can play decks like Tempo decks. I've been playing a Phoenix deck, and it's been playing pretty well. This format is just so great, and I can't say enough about it.
Yeah, it's definitely been very wide. And you brought up the Phoenix, too. That was another card that's really been upsetting kind of Modern as well, because there's been Modern Phoenix decks that have been coming out. Have you had a chance to play any of those in the Modern metagame?
I haven't played them, but I've seen them doing well. They're posting well. They're posting good records on MTGO. I know that Daniela Diaz has been playing a red and blue one. Also, she played a Grixis Dragons deck with Niv Mizzet in it, and I think she 5-0'd with it. If she didn't 5-0, she 4-1'd a whole bunch of leagues with it, and actually Saffron Olive played it too, and he 4-1 with it. That looks like an interesting deck too. I think those two cards, Arclight Phoenix and Niv Mizzet, have a home in Modern.
Yeah, they're definitely cool cards, and they're making some splashes. So, yep, those were the events this weekend. By the time you listen to this, you'll know more about them than we do. But overall, that our take is that both Modern and Standard are super fun right now. And if you're a Dredge player and you haven't dusted off the deck in a while, well, go buy some Creeping Chills and go beat everyone's faces with it. All right, so that moves us on into our community spotlight. So, who is our community spotlight this week?
This week I want to talk about Warlord Hank. Warlord Hank has a YouTube channel where he does a lot of videos with his son. He has this segment right now called Cardboard Paladin where he goes to different local game stores and kind of gives you a tour of that local game store and he plays Magic there. I think that's a really cool series of videos that he's bringing out, so you definitely got to watch them. Also, Warlord Hank does the sub 1K subs playlist on his channel for YouTube channels in the MTG community that have less than 1,000 subs, and he posts on. He makes a whole playlist on YouTube, and then he posts on Twitter and puts this big thread out telling everybody what these people are doing, and it's been super helpful for a lot of people in the community, and it's something that has been a fixture of the We Are MTG community. And I can't say enough good things about Hank. He's a great person, and he has a great channel. So please definitely go check out Warlord Hank on YouTube.
Awesome. There you have it, Warlord Hank. He definitely a big proponent in promoting other small-time content creators. He's just doing it for the good of the community. So that's awesome stuff. All right, so that moves us into our Triple Strike questions of the week. So every episode, we like to end it with 3 trivia questions. We have our first strike, double strike, and last strike questions, which you can answer, think about on your way home from work, whatever it is you feel like doing, but just some fun trivia. And then also we provide answers to the prior episodes' triple strike questions. So last episode's triple strike questions were, the first strike question was, how many Vraska Planeswalkers have been printed? And the answer to that was 5. We weren't concerned about different arts, just the different Planeswalkers themselves. The double strike question was, who won the 2016 World Championship? The answer was Brian Braun-Duin. And then the last strike question was, who are the members of the team known as Peach Garden Oath? And the answer is Reed Duke, William Jensen, and Owen Turtenwald. So those are the answers to your triple strike questions from episode 5. Now your episode 6, this episode, triple strike questions are, the first strike question is, what does EDH stand for? The double strike question is, when did Modern, as we know it, become an official format? And then the last strike question is, which Circle of Protection was not printed in Alpha? So those are your triple strike questions of the week. Again, make sure that you please share this podcast, and if you share on Twitter or Facebook with hashtag MTGDeckTechs, and the answers to these triple strike questions, we'll make sure that we get back to you and we provide some shout out for you. Also, if you'd like to reach out to the podcast, you can reach us on MTGDeckTechPodcast@gmail.com. And if you shoot us any questions or anything, we'll read them on the air. We can get back to you if you have any questions. And you can also hit me directly on Twitter at JamesRMTG. Jason, how can they get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me on Twitter at T2TKS, and also you can find me at MTGDeckTechs as well.
Awesome. So that's it. That's pretty much all we have for this episode. It's a bit of a short episode, and thanks for bearing with us as we had to skip last week. We look forward to hitting you guys up next week, and until then, have a great time.
See you, everyone. Have fun. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It helps out a lot. Also, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with all of our uploads. You can follow us on these platforms here at MTGDeckTechs. And finally, a big shout out to Terry Ledford for his generous Patreon donation. If you would like to become a patron for MTGDeckTechs, please click the link down below. It is not necessary, but it helps us out quite a bit. Thank you for watching the video, and we will see you all again soon.